it's about time that I get a little bit of an upgrade to how I do things. So now I have like the TikTok lights in the background, and I have I have a Hawaiian shirt, so you know how chill I am. Oh, also, whew, there you are. And now if I take you, I'm gonna throw you back there. Yeah, crap just got real. You must live in fear of me. I have unlimited power now that I have 2 cameras. The first camera was, okay, basic stuff, whatever. The second camera, that is the precursor to world domination, which is what I intend to do, you know, after all this stuff goes big and I get millions and millions of loyal fans. Because that's the game plan here, folks. The game plan is just so many fans, so much clout, and so many admirers that I get $5. I get $5 from the YouTube man. And now that I have 2 camera angles, that's gonna be a reality. Hey, how's it going? I'm Connor. I like stories. Hey, Disney's a massive corporation, if you didn't know that already. Here's the thing about Disney, right? So everybody sees them as like the cartoon, the animated stuff. What Disney sells isn't any of that. It's merchandise, right? That's where they get most of their sales. That and like streaming services on Disney Plus, basically. But it's mostly just toys. So as long as they're selling toys and crap, they're completely fine. They're completely fine. You don't need to make good art if you're Disney, because you have this multi-million-dollar brand, billion-dollar brand even. Freaking Robert Iger is looking at you and just going, oh, we're worth billions of dollars now. And it's freaking whatever. So you don't have to worry about good or bad art. You just got to worry about if the characters will buy units. And that's what you see for a lot of Disney's strategy, and for a lot of the competitor strategy. I mean, freaking, you know about the Minions. Oh, you know. But that's besides the point. For as much of the child labor and all the crap that Disney pulls, there is one thing that I will give them credit for, and it's that, for the most part, they have the understanding that if you make good art and you tell good stories, you will sell more units, just in general. I mean, Frozen wasn't this huge freaking marvel of an idea. That's Marvel. But Frozen, as a concept, was this really original idea, and it sort of really brought back Disney musicals outside of like Tangled. People forget that Frozen wasn't this huge IP before like the movies or anything like that. Like, you see a bunch of remakes and stuff like that in the 2010s and going into the 2020s. But Frozen was this new original idea, and people really loved it. And now it's an IP that they can continue to milk like the freaking dairy cow that it is. So Disney has the understanding that to make good purchases and to make good financial decisions, if you're going to be a company that sells stories, you have to make good stories and good art. And that's what they freaking do with the Owl House, baby. Let's go! The Owl House is this lovely show on Disney Channel, created by a Dana Terrace, who was a storyboard artist for Gravity Falls, and this was one of the first things that they did after that. And it's still going on to this day, but it's freaking fantastic, and I just want to talk about it. So it follows this girl, Luz, and she's this really wacky, creative personality type who gets sent into this fictional magic world that is like, oh my gosh, look at all these sights and sounds and stuff. Nothing that's like super crazy or like groundbreaking, but the way they do it is what's really cool. She goes on this journey to become a witch, like Ida the Owl Lady, who is the person that ends up, you know, basically fostering her for the foreseeable future. Throughout this, she goes to witch school, has wacky romance hijinks, does crazy quests, and then there's this overarching story, sort of like Gravity Falls, in that way that, you know, ties everything up into a loose end. and that's still going on right now. Like, you can watch this show and follow it along. It hasn't ended yet, so you can still keep on watching this show. I wanted to talk about the Owl House mainly because it's freaking fantastic, and I feel as though it deserves to be talked about, and I'm going to talk about it because, you know what, that's what I wanted to do today. And so I just think it's really swell, and you should give it a chance. And that's what this video is about, baby. So let's just freaking, you subscribe, and then we'll just freaking jump on into it. So go ahead. Okay, let's get right into it. Listen, I want to give a disclaimer first, because if you know anything about the Owl House, it's that they are very good when it comes to putting inclusivity and diversity into these characters. You have people that are of different races, you have a female protagonist, you have a storyline that is sort of an allegory for HIV/AIDS or like long-standing pre-existing conditions. You have LGBTQ people in this show, and here's the deal, that's great. I'm not going to talk about it though, for a couple of reasons. First one is, look at me. Do you really want to be getting your inclusivity takes from me? I'm 3 Coronas and about 10 years out from being your weird uncle at your family reunion, and you're going to come to me and ask for my takes on diversity and inclusivity? That's just dumb. You're a fool, you're an idiot, and I hate you. There are so many people that are way more qualified to talk about that type of stuff and actually have a lot more relevant things to say about it than I do. I'm freaking just sitting here and I'm just vibing at the show, and I just enjoy the show. And the other reason is because my one take on it is that representation is great, but it only works if the story itself works and is a really good story. Because if you have a character that is a minority figure in these cultures or anything like that, and they are in a show that is bad, or they treat it badly, or don't treat it with respect, then boom, now that character becomes synonymous with that group and can actually like make things worse. So it's really important that the story and the world that those characters are in are really, really good. And that's what I want to talk about. That's where I'm going to be going with this, because I love stories. That is why that's why I'm sitting here. That's why I'm sitting here. I really like stories. And so I'm going to talk about the stories, the world, and how it serves. And then you can go and find people that talk about the importance of the show when it comes to the social aspect. But that's not really why I'm here. So that's my disclaimer. We'll just freaking keep moving forward with this. Let me ask you something. How do you write magic? Huh? How do you write it? Because magic is a really broad term, right? Because it's basically anything that you can't just explain via science, or like it can't be explained by what's going on of what we perceive now, right? So when you talk about writing magic, what does that mean? Like, how do you do it? And there's a lot of ways that people have written magic and how magic works over the years. Some people, like a Miss J.K. Rowling, will write a hard system of magic where, okay, this is how it works. This is how your magic operates, how it functions in the world. And sometimes you will find that magic is just science figured out in a different thing. There are certain authors that like to do the ancient aliens thing. I don't really like it, but I mean, you can freaking like it. I just, like, at that point, just do science. Like, don't call it magic, you know, just call it science at that point. The Owl House is a hard magic setting, if that makes sense, where the magic is very clearly explained on how it works and like how magic works in the world. In this case, witches, magic comes from the heart, but it's actually like a joke. There's like a little like piece of flesh that's right next to the heart, or like a little sack of bile that's right next to the heart that helps witches generate magic. And Luz, who is a human, just to remind you, once to do magic, but doesn't have that aspect of her in it. So the rules of magic in this case serve to empower our protagonist, right? A lot of stories will just have the obstacle and then be like, hey, you need to overcome this obstacle, and not give a reason why they can't do it already. A lot of the time, they should just be able to do it by the rules of how the world works. But in this case, Luce, as a human, physically is unable to do magic like everybody else. So she has to improvise and be creative, which ties into her character. How is she gonna grow through overcoming this adversity? And it also serves to empower our villain gang, because the villain does some wacky stuff too, and it really blows your mind.
Let my friends go, or else.
Okay. I'll play.
Here's another rule about Owl House magic. So witches, in order to cast spells, it's very clearly stated, like, well, it's not stated, but it's implied that they have to draw a circle, right? And it's got to be this perfect circle, and then they can cast the spell through the circle, right? And so that is a limitation of the type of magic here. And then you have the main villain, Emperor Bellos. And I'm not going to spoil a whole lot, because again, this video serves to get you to want to watch the show, because the show's freaking sick and I want you to watch the show. Watch the show, please. But Emperor Bellos doesn't need to do that. Like, he can, but when you first meet him, he's literally throwing people just by pointing at them. Like, he's not doing any wacky spells based on the rules of the show. Like, the show has set up these rules, and then now you have our big bad, and he doesn't have to follow those rules. Everybody else is in this matrix, right? Where it's like, oh, well, Ida's the most powerful witch here, so she's right here. And then, you know, Luce doesn't know any magic, so she's like all the way down here. And then you have all these people in the middle. And then Bellos comes in and says, I am completely outside of this. I am completely outside of the need to work in your laws of magic. Talk about a freaking powerful villain, right? It is so clear that this is a challenge that our heroes are just not prepared to go head on with. Which again, ties into Luce's need to adapt and be creative. Something that she's had to learn since the beginning of the show. And all of that is implied without freaking any dialogue or anything like that. Holy crap, the world building is freaking insane in this freaking show. You wanna know the biggest gripe of TV for me? Like, the biggest gripe. It's that so much of TV doesn't need to be there. It's getting better with streaming. Like, you have shows that are literally like 7 episodes and it's jam-packed with crap. But for the longest time, especially on cable TV, you just have show after show after show after show. And so many of the episodes are just, oh, let's battle this villain a week or something like that. And serve no purpose to actually developing your characters and developing your world. Now, that's fine if your entire show does not work. It's like incredibly formulaic. Like, SpongeBob can get away with that crap, because at the end of every single freaking episode, either everything goes back to normal or everything is reset by the next episode. There's no continuity whatsoever. But with a show with an overarching plot, I don't need all of the filler. There's certain other Disney Channel shows that really had this problem and got a lot of video essays about it. And I don't need to talk about it, because if you're watching this video and you've seen Disney Channel shows and you're freaking my age and you're watching Disney Channel like me, you know the shows. So I don't need to tell you. One of my favorite parts about the Owl House is that every single episode has purpose. You may not be able to see the purpose of the episode when you first watch it, but everything serves to build the characters and build the story without feeling like it's dredging on and on and on. And this is partially due to the fact that Disney is a giant corporation and they don't really like shows that break the mold. There's this whole arc that's been going on outside of everything where the creators of the Owl House and Disney are freaking fighting because they want to cancel the show, but then they're just going to curve off the ending of it and all this type of stuff, so you just got to deal with it and all this wild crap. And I don't know the logistics of it. You can look it up. There's probably a YouTube video about it somewhere, but that serves to say they need to use as much time as they got. It's very much like how Avatar has had 3 seasons to tell their story, and every episode has some form of significance to that story. They may seem like smaller mini adventures when you look at it from just a standard viewpoint, but when you look at it from the perspective of, oh, this is an entire show here, then bam, now you're cooking with apples. Characters, episode, story points, world building, all of it happens in every single one of the episodes. So you need to watch all the episodes. I'm telling you, you have to watch this show because it's freaking sick. And if you don't, I'm literally going to go into your house and freaking slow. Every single character in this show, excluding maybe like the big bad, is created with the ability to grow. They are dynamic characters, if you want the technical term. They have the ability to grow and shape, and nobody seems like they are unable to change at all. You've seen shows and you've seen movies where it's like, really? We're dealing with this crap again? Come on, bro. Like, why are we dealing with this? We could have just moved on. You have settled this point. I'm talking about you, Flash. I'm talking about you, Flash TV show. Every single time, the Flash has to just get faster. And then he does. And now he's freaking insane and can break literally any metric that you can. And we're done. And we're sick of it. And I want to cry. That's not what this video is about. If you want a Flash video, let me know. But this video is about the Owl House, which doesn't do that. You can look at each and every one of these characters and be like, holy crap, by the end of the show, they're completely different from who they were at the beginning. We haven't even gotten to the end of the show. The end of the show hasn't freaking hit yet. And all these characters are so freaking different, and they've grown so much, and there's no better example of this than Amity Blight. You will understand when you watch this show. I'm not going to delve completely into it, but if you're an Owl House fan, you know. And if you're not, you're going to know, because after this video, you're going to go watch the Owl House, which is going to be one of the greatest experiences of your life. You just are. It's just a fact. Okay, so we all know art is subjective. We all know this. We all do. But I want to talk about my interpretation of the meta-narrative, meaning like the narrative that is not really happening, but you can see it happening through the lens of what the story is. Because I think that it's very funny that this show is telling this story when the creators of the show are dealing with the exact same thing that the characters in the show are dealing with currently. And that is the battle and the conflict between artist and business. A corporation, take Disney for example, is the embodiment of control. Because they are very results oriented. Like, if you do not achieve X, Y, Z, then you are not up to par, you're not generating enough profit, and we're going to cut you off. Now, you could be making art for something like Disney, and that would be perfectly fine, but it has to result in having the bottom line necessary. And if you don't have that bottom line, it doesn't matter how quality of art you've made, the quality is determined by the results on the bottom line. And if you don't have that bottom line, you're out. It's not fair, but it's reality. It's Earth. It's our human world. And that's how we have chosen to live our lives in the world that we live in. And then you have the artist. I think there's a big misconception about what the artist's ideal life is. Because the artist's ideal life is not to be getting paid for doing what they love. It's to not have to worry about money in order to put good quality art into the world. If an artist didn't have to worry about where their next meal was coming from, or the place that they lived in, or the food that they ate, or the water that they drank, or anything like that, then they could just make art, and it could be good, bad, whatever. It's art, and they could send it into the freaking stratosphere and freaking explode and watch it be fireworks and just enjoy the ride. And that is the dream of any artist. And it's a dream. It's not gonna happen. It is a fantasy that everybody would love to live in. It's a fantasy world. It's a boiling isle. And you're not always going to be able to live in the boiling isles for too long. Sometimes the time is going to have to come where you have to go home at some point and you have to go back to reality. The thing about the Owl House is that Luce is trying desperately to hold on and try and figure out how to balance fantasy and reality. And that is the thing that she is struggling with since the first episode of the show. And it's very funny that when there is a battle between artist and corporation, say the Owl House writers, Dana Terrace, and the Disney Channel, and they might get canceled, who knows, or they might have to limit their third season or anything like that. It's very interesting that they are having to make that struggle as their characters are. So I wonder what the conclusion is going to be. How do you find the balance between fantasy and reality? Because you need both. You need control, and you also need chaos, and you need order, and you need wild, and you need humans, and you need witches. It's going to be interesting to see how it wraps up. And I really hope that you take the time and watch this show, because I think that something really special is happening with it. So conclusion, watch Owl House. It's freaking sick. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's basically all I got. Hey, if you like this, subscribe. You best be subscribing. You best be hitting the like button. You best be doing the YouTuber stuff. I talk about stories. I like stories. I'm a big fan of them. And I also do interviews with people. Just random people about their lives. And if you like either of those things, or you like other dope crap, you're gonna like this channel. So freaking hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. I really will appreciate it. And if you haven't clicked off this video after that ramble, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.